This is TechCrunch. Well, the apparently insatiable demand for AI compute has data center entrepreneurs looking to the stars. There is a key problem, though. There are not enough rockets to put data centers in orbit around the Earth, and they're also too expensive. Now, most of the players are hoping that SpaceX's Starship, expected to make its 12th test flight as soon as this weekend, will solve that problem, but once the vehicle is operational, it may be years before it is commercially available, given SpaceX's internal satellite business. The same is true for Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, which failed to deliver a satellite during its third launch back in April. That leaves space data center schemes either targeting the mid-2030s, like Google's Suncatcher, or preparing to start off doing edge processing tasks for space sensors like StarCloud. In theory, there is a third way. As Baju Bhatt, the CEO and founder of Cowboy Space Corporation, told TechCrunch, "We're standing up our own rocket program." He expects the first launch before the end of 2028. Well, the company announced recently the closure of a $275 million Series B round at a post-money valuation of $2 billion, led by Index Ventures as a down payment on that work. Breakthrough Energy Ventures, Construct Capital, IVP, and SAIC also participated. Bhatt, a co-founder of online stock platform Robinhood, launched this startup in 2024 as Etherflux, which plans to collect abundant solar energy in space and then beam it down to Earth. The idea of space data centers led the company to pivot towards using its electricity while in orbit. Now, the practical realities of that effort, in turn, led him to a rocket development program and the company's new name. Bhatt said he spoke to multiple launch providers to try and find a path where his company would only build satellites, but he couldn't find enough launch capacity to truly scale an orbital data center business, or do so in a way where the unit economics could compete with terrestrial alternatives. He said, "There's a lot of new rockets that are coming online, but as we look 3-4 years out, it's still very, very scarce. And I think that you're going to see a lot of the first-party rocket providers actually specialize into their own payloads." Of course, while bringing the rocket in-house seems logical, it's also nuts. Only a handful of private companies in the West, mainly SpaceX, Rocket Lab, and Ariane Space, are consistently launching commercial rockets. Two others, Blue Origin and United Launch Alliance, have been struggling to drag their vehicles out of development hell for years. A number of startups, including Stoke Space, Firefly Aerospace, and Relativity Space, have worked for years and are still waiting to deliver operational systems. Now, this evolution of the company will also bring Cowboy Space Corporation into direct competition with SpaceX and Blue Origin, the most advanced and well-funded players in the market. Bhatt said, "The price here and the size of this market is big enough that there is room for many players to succeed. He sees the demand for AI getting more and more acute, and he sees the options on Earth getting more and more limited." Now, one advantage, Bhatt argues, is the company's focus on this single market of data centers and its unique design. Orbital rockets typically have a booster stage that flies the vehicle to the edge of space and a second stage that carries the payload and delivers it to orbit. Cowboy Space plans to build its data centers directly into the second stage of its rocket. It's actually a bit of a throwback. The first U.S. satellite, Explorer 1, was built as the final stage of a rocket filled with radio equipment and a few scientific instruments. Making the rocket purpose-built only to launch its data center satellites should simplify the design process. The company expects each satellite to have a mass of 20 to 25,000 kilograms and to generate 1 megawatt of power for just under 800 onboard GPUs. That means its rocket would be slightly more powerful than the SpaceX's workhorse Falcon 9, though still smaller than its under-development Starship. Eventually, Bhatt says, he expects the booster to be reusable. Cowboy Space has hired veterans of the space industry, including former Blue Origin propulsion engineer Warren Lamont and former SpaceX launch director Tyler Grin. The company also plans to build its own rocket engine, the most complex and expensive part of any launch vehicle. Cowboy Space is still working through key development needs like facilities to test, manufacture, and launch its rockets. The new vision comes with a new name for the startup to emphasize its mission to power humanity from the high frontier. Although Bott admits it gives him a reason to wear a cowboy hat and grow a sick mustache. A lot of folks are wondering how work setups will change, if we spend more and more time talking to our computers. A recent feature in the Wall Street Journal looked at the rising popularity of dictation apps like Whisper, especially now that they can be connected to vibe coding tools, and what that might mean for office etiquette. Now, one VC said that visiting startup offices now feels like stepping into a high-end call center, and Gusto co-founder Edward Kim is apparently telling his team that in the future, offices will sound more like a sales floor. Now, Kim claimed that he only types now when he absolutely has to, but he admitted that constantly dictating in the office can be just a little awkward. Similarly, AI entrepreneur Molly Amkrot-Mueller said her husband became annoyed with her new habit of whispering to her computer, so their late-night work sessions now involve sitting apart, or one of us will stay in our office. But Whisper founder Tanay Kothari insisted that this will all seem normal one day, just as it's become normal to spend hours staring at your phone. That's all for now. For more stories like these, go to TechCrunch.com.